It is said that you cannot change your future, but you can change your habits, and surely your habits will change your future. This profound wisdom holds the key to unlocking our true potential, reminding us that the grand vision we have for our lives is not achieved in a single leap, but through the accumulation of small, consistent actions. Today's story is about how small habits can change your life and lead you on the path of progress. We often overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making small improvements on a daily basis. We convince ourselves that massive success requires massive action, but the truth is far more subtle and accessible. Success never happens overnight. It is built quietly, one small step at a time, in the unnoticed moments of discipline, in the choice to do something just 1% better than the day before. The journey to an extraordinary life is paved with ordinary, intentional habits. It's about showing up for yourself when no one is watching, choosing purpose over distraction, and understanding that the seeds of greatness are planted in the soil of your daily routine. This is not about a sudden transformation, but a gradual evolution into the person you are meant to be. This story is an invitation to look at your life through a new lens, a lens of possibility and incremental growth. If you have ever felt stuck or wondered why your hard work does not bring results, then watch this story till the end, because these few minutes could become the turning point of your life. It's a reminder that you hold the power to redesign your destiny, not by changing everything at once, but by changing one small thing right now. Let this story be the spark that ignites your journey towards intentional living and profound personal change. In a small, peaceful town, there lived a young man named Kale. Kale was full of ambition and dreams, yet he often found his days slipping through his fingers like sand. He would wake up with a surge of motivation, but by noon, he would feel lost, pulled in 100 different directions by distractions and unimportant tasks. His energy would scatter, and by the end of the day, he would look back with a sense of regret, feeling that he had been busy but not productive. His grand goals seemed to remain distant, like stars he could see but never reach. One evening, while talking to an old wise carpenter in the village, Kale shared his frustrations. The carpenter, known for his beautiful and intricate woodwork, listened patiently. He then smiled and said, "A good carpenter never picks up his tools without a blueprint. He visualizes the final piece, plans each cut, and knows exactly what he needs to do before the first splinter of wood falls. Your day is like a block of wood, Kale. If you start carving without a plan, you'll end up with a pile of sawdust, not a masterpiece." These words resonated deeply with Kale. That very night, he decided to try a new habit. Before going to sleep, he took out a simple notebook and a pen. He didn't write a long, complicated to-do list. Instead, he simply wrote down the 3 most important things he wanted to accomplish the next day. He thought about what would move him closer to his goals, what would make the day feel truly successful. This simple act of planning took no more than 10 minutes, but it felt like he was drawing a map for the journey ahead. The next morning, Kyle woke up not with a sense of overwhelming chaos, but with a feeling of clarity and purpose. He knew exactly where to direct his energy. The plan acted as his compass, guiding him through the distractions and temptations of the day. When an unexpected request came up, he could look at his plan and decide if it aligned with his priorities. He wasn't just reacting to the day anymore. He was intentionally directing it. This small ritual of nightly planning began to save him hours of wasted time and mental energy. Slowly but surely, this single habit started a ripple effect. Planning his day gave him a sense of control and confidence. He was no longer a ship tossed about by the waves, but a captain steering his vessel with intention. He realized that success wasn't about having more time, but about using the time he had with more direction. That 10-minute investment every night was setting the stage for a day of purpose, focus, and meaningful progress, laying the first foundational stone for the life he dreamed of building. Inspired by his newfound clarity, Kale decided to build on his momentum. He had read about the power of the morning hours, that sacred, quiet time before the world awakens. He was usually one to hit the snooze button, trading the tranquility of the dawn for a few more minutes of restless sleep. But now, he saw the morning not as something to be endured, but as an opportunity to be embraced. He set his alarm just 1 hour earlier than usual, determined to claim that time for himself and set a positive tone for the entire day. The first few mornings were a struggle. His body was used to its old rhythm, and the warmth of his bed felt like an anchor. But he pushed through, remembering the carpenter's words about intentionality. As he stepped out into the cool, silent air of the early morning, he felt a unique sense of peace. The world was still, his mind was clear, and for the first time, he felt he was ahead of the day, rather than chasing it. He used this time not for frantic work, but for quiet reflection and personal growth. He created a simple morning ritual. He would start with a few minutes of quiet meditation, just focusing on his breath, allowing his mind to settle. This practice helped him wash away any lingering anxieties from the day before and cultivate a sense of inner calm. Then, he would spend some time reading a few pages from an inspiring book, feeding his mind with positive ideas and new perspectives. He found that this act of learning first thing in the morning filled him with energy and a desire to grow. After feeding his mind, he would do some light stretching or go for a short walk. This gentle movement woke up his body and connected him to the physical world. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. He was grateful for the new day, for his health, and for the opportunity to become a better version of himself. This gratitude shifted his entire emotional state from one of scarcity and stress to one of abundance and possibility. This morning routine became the bedrock of his transformation. It was his non-negotiable time for self-care and personal development. By starting his day with clarity, energy, and positivity, he built a powerful foundation that the chaos of the day could not shake. The rest of the world might be rushing and reacting, but Kale began his journey from a place of centeredness and strength. He was learning that how you start your day doesn't just influence the day itself, it shapes who you become. With his days now bookended by powerful routines, Kale turned his attention to the work itself. In the past, he would often get discouraged by the sheer size of his ambitions. The thought of writing a book, starting a business, or mastering a skill felt so monumental that it was paralyzing. He would work in frantic bursts of effort, burn out, and then do nothing for weeks, caught in a cycle of all or nothing. This approach left him feeling like he was running in place, his dreams no closer than before. One day, while reading during his morning ritual, he came across the concept of the compound effect. The idea was simple yet revolutionary. Small, seemingly insignificant improvements, when repeated consistently over time, lead to staggering results. It wasn't about a 100% improvement in one day, it was about a 1% improvement every day. This concept clicked in his mind, reframing his entire approach to progress. He decided to stop chasing massive leaps and start focusing on tiny, daily gains. If his goal was to write a book, he committed not to writing a chapter a day, but just one page. Some days it was just a single paragraph. If he wanted to learn a new language, he wouldn't try to study for hours, but would learn just 5 new words each day. If he wanted to get fit, he wouldn't force himself into a grueling 2-hour workout, but would start with a 10-minute walk, adding 1 minute each week. The tasks were so small, so manageable, that there was no excuse not to do them. At first, the results were almost invisible. Writing 1 page didn't feel like progress. Learning 5 words felt insignificant. A 10-minute walk barely felt like exercise. It was easy to feel foolish, to think that this wasn't enough. The temptation to revert to his old habit of go big or go home was strong. But he trusted the process. He reminded himself that a sapling doesn't become a mighty oak overnight. Its growth is slow, steady, and relentless. Weeks turned into months, and the magic of compounding began to reveal itself. His single pages had turned into chapters. His 5 words a day had built a vocabulary of over 1,000 words. His daily walks had evolved into comfortable jogs. The progress was no longer invisible, it was undeniable. He realized that consistency was a far more powerful force than intensity. This relentless commitment to small, daily improvements was building a momentum that felt unstoppable, transforming him and his life in ways he had never thought possible. As Kale's confidence grew with his consistent habits, he noticed a new, subtle barrier, the comfort zone. His routines, while effective, had become safe. He was making progress, but he felt the pull of complacency, that gentle whisper telling him to stay where he was, to avoid any risk of failure. He had built a comfortable world, but he knew that true growth, the kind that leads to transformation, rarely happens within the boundaries of comfort. He realized that his next step was to intentionally and strategically step into the unknown. He thought of his comfort zone as a circle drawn in the sand. Inside the circle was everything he knew, every skill he had mastered, every routine that felt easy. Outside the circle lay everything else. challenges, uncertainty, and the potential for both failure and extraordinary growth. He understood that to expand his circle, he couldn't just stand in the middle. He had to walk to the edge and take a deliberate step out. This didn't mean taking reckless, terrifying leaps, but rather small, calculated forays into discomfort. He decided to apply the 1% rule to his comfort zone. If he was afraid of public speaking, his goal wasn't to give a keynote address. His first step was to simply ask a question in a small group meeting. The next step might be to share a brief idea. He started small, stretching the elastic band of his comfort just enough to feel the tension, but not so much that it would snap. Each small step outside his zone of comfort built a new layer of confidence and expanded his circle of capability. This practice of embracing discomfort began to change his relationship with fear. He started to see the feeling of nervousness not as a stop sign, but as a compass pointing toward an area of potential growth. When he felt that familiar flutter of anxiety before trying something new, he would remind himself, "This is where the magic happens." He joined a local club to meet new people, even though he was naturally introverted. He took on a project at work that was slightly beyond his current skill set, forcing him to learn and adapt. With each new challenge he undertook, he discovered a strength he never knew he possessed. He learned that failure wasn't a verdict on his worth, but simply feedback on his approach. The world outside his comfort zone was not as scary as he had imagined. It was a playground for learning and discovery. He realized that a life lived entirely in comfort is a life half-lived. By daring to step into the unknown, he wasn't just growing his skills, he was expanding his very sense of self. In his journey of growth, Cale observed a common habit in those around him, the tendency to delegate or avoid the small, mundane tasks of life. People would put off washing the dishes, making their bed, or organizing their workspace, seeing these chores as insignificant distractions from their real work. Cale, too, had often been guilty of this, letting small messes pile up while he focused on his bigger goals. But he began to suspect that these small acts of personal responsibility held a hidden power. He decided to conduct an experiment. He would treat every small task with the same level of intention and discipline as his most important projects. He started by making his bed perfectly every morning, not as a chore, but as his first accomplishment of the day. He washed the dishes immediately after a meal, leaving the kitchen clean and ready. He took a few minutes at the end of each day to tidy his desk, creating an environment of order for the next morning. At first, it felt like a distraction. A part of his mind protested, arguing that this time could be better spent on his real work. But he persisted, treating these actions as a form of mindfulness and discipline. He noticed that completing these small, physical tasks had a surprisingly positive effect on his mental state. Bringing order to his physical environment seemed to bring a similar order to his mind. There was a quiet satisfaction in taking care of his own space. This practice of self-reliance began to build a deeper, more fundamental layer of confidence. He reasoned that if he couldn't be trusted to handle the small responsibilities of his own life, how could he expect to handle the larger responsibilities of his ambitious goals? Each dish washed, each paper filed, each bed made, was a small vote for the person he wanted to become. Someone who was disciplined, responsible, and had integrity in all things, big or small. He discovered that discipline is a muscle. By exercising it on these simple, everyday tasks, he was strengthening it for the bigger challenges. When the time came to push through a difficult project or resist a powerful distraction, he found he had a deeper well of self-control to draw from. He learned that true confidence isn't just about believing you can achieve big things. It's built on the quiet, consistent proof that you can handle the small things, day in and day out. As Cale became more disciplined, he confronted the modern world's greatest enemy of progress: distraction. He noticed how he would sit down to write, only to be pulled away by a notification on his phone. He'd start reading a book and find his mind wandering to his email inbox. He was doing many things, but he was fully present in none of them. This constant multitasking was fracturing his attention, leaving him feeling busy but unfulfilled. His work was shallow, lacking the depth and quality he craved. He learned about the concept of deep work or flow, a state of complete immersion in a single task where the rest of the world seems to fade away. It is in this state that we do our best work, solve our most complex problems, and feel the most engaged. Cale realized that his habit of multitasking was robbing him of this experience. He decided to wage a war on distraction and reclaim his ability to focus, making single tasking his new mantra. His approach was strategic. He designated specific blocks of time in his day for focused work. During these blocks, he would turn off his phone or put it in another room. He closed all unnecessary tabs on his computer and disabled notifications. He created a sanctuary for his attention. When he sat down to write, he did nothing but write. When he read, he did nothing but read. He treated his attention as his most valuable resource, protecting it fiercely. Initially, this was incredibly difficult. His mind, conditioned for constant stimulation, would scream for a distraction. The urge to check his phone or open a new tab was almost overwhelming. It felt like a form of withdrawal. But just as with his other habits, he started small. He would aim for just 25 minutes of unbroken focus, followed by a short break. Slowly, he extended these periods of concentration, training his focus muscle day by day. The results were transformative. In 1 hour of deep, focused work, he accomplished more than he used to in 3 hours of distracted half-work. The quality of his output improved dramatically. But more importantly, the experience of work itself changed. Instead of feeling draining and stressful, it became immersive and rewarding. By giving one task his full, undivided attention, he not only achieved more, but also found a profound sense of satisfaction and flow in the process. He was learning that the path to great achievement is not paved with multitasking, but with the deep, singular focus on the task at hand. Kale had been focused intensely on his inner world, his habits, his mindset, his discipline. But he soon realized that the environment and the people he surrounded himself with had a profound and inescapable influence on his journey. He noticed that after spending time with certain friends who were cynical or constantly complained, he would feel drained, his own motivation and optimism depleted. Conversely, after a conversation with his mentor, the old carpenter, he felt uplifted and inspired. He came to understand a simple truth: you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Their attitudes, their beliefs, their habits, and their ambitions subconsciously seep into your own being. Energy is contagious. If you surround yourself with people who are stagnant, negative, and uninspired, their gravity will inevitably pull you down. If you surround yourself with people who are positive, growing, and ambitious, their momentum will lift you up. With this newfound awareness, Kyle made a conscious decision to curate his social circle. This wasn't about ruthlessly cutting people out of his life, but about intentionally investing more of his time and energy in relationships that nourished his growth. He sought out individuals who inspired him, people who were passionate about their own journeys, who saw possibilities instead of problems, and who celebrated his successes instead of being envious of them. He started spending more time at the carpenter's workshop, not just for advice, but to absorb his patient, purpose-driven energy. He joined a book club with people who loved learning and discussing big ideas. He reconnected with an old friend who had started a successful small business, and their conversations became a source of mutual encouragement and practical advice. He actively distanced himself from gatherings where gossip and negativity were the main currency of conversation. The effect on his mindset was palpable. Being around positive, ambitious people normalized his own aspirations. His dreams no longer felt strange or out of reach. They felt possible and supported. These friends and mentors acted as mirrors, reflecting his own potential back at him. They challenged him to think bigger, to try harder, and to get back up after a setback. Kyle learned that personal growth is not a solo mission. The community you build around you is the ecosystem in which your dreams will either wither or thrive. As Kale's life transformed through his new habits, he reached a plateau. He was consistent, focused, and positive, but he felt he was playing it too safe. His growth was steady but linear. He remembered the feeling of stepping out of his comfort zone and realized that to reach the next level, he needed to do more than just stretch. He needed to occasionally leap. He understood that a life devoid of risk is also a life devoid of significant reward. The fear of failure had kept him on a very predictable path. He sought the carpenter's wisdom once more. The old man was examining a large, beautiful piece of timber. "Kyle," he said, "every time I start a new project with a rare piece of wood like this, there is a risk. One wrong cut, one moment of inattention, and it could be ruined. But if I never risk the cut, this beautiful timber will remain just a block of wood, its potential locked away forever. The goal is not to avoid all risk, but to understand the wood, measure carefully, and make a calculated cut. You must do the same with your life." This analogy illuminated the path forward for Kyle. He had been avoiding risk, fearing the wrong cut that could lead to failure. Now he saw that the real failure was in never making the cut at all, in letting his potential remain locked away. He decided to stop seeing risk as a threat and start seeing it as a necessary ingredient for exponential growth. The key, as the carpenter said, was to make it calculated. This meant not being reckless, but being informed, prepared, and strategic. He began to identify opportunities for calculated risks in his life. He had been building a small side business based on his writing, but he was afraid to leave the security of his day job. After months of saving, planning, and building a client base, he calculated the risk. It was still scary, but it was no longer a blind jump. He took the leap, pouring his full energy into his own venture. It was the most terrifying and exhilarating decision he had ever made. This act of taking a significant, calculated risk unlocked a new level of growth and self-belief. Some of his smaller risks didn't pay off, but he treated them as the carpenter would a piece of scrap wood, as learning experiences for the next, more important cut. He learned that stagnation is the silent enemy of progress, and that a life lived in fear of making mistakes is a life that never truly begins. By embracing smart risks, Cale wasn't just building a career, he was crafting a life of courage, adventure, and limitless possibility. As we've seen in Cale's journey, the path to a transformed life is not found in a single dramatic event, but in the quiet consistency of our daily choices. It begins with a simple decision: to plan with intention, to claim the morning, to improve by just 1%, to step into discomfort, to take responsibility, to focus deeply, to surround yourself with light, and to bravely take calculated risks. These are not grand gestures, but small, repeatable actions that, over time, carve a new reality. Every small habit, every effort, every act of discipline is like digging your own well. In the beginning, all you see is dirt and struggle. It's tiring, and you see no immediate reward. Many people give up, believing their efforts are futile. But you must remember that you are not just moving dirt. You are moving towards water. If you keep going, if you show up day after day, your small efforts will compound. You will dig deeper, past the surface-level challenges, until one day, you break through to that underground spring. And when you do, success, fulfillment, and purpose will not just trickle, they will start flowing too, nourishing every aspect of your life. Your well of discipline will become a well of abundance. So I want to leave you with this invitation. Don't be overwhelmed by the desire to change everything at once. Choose one thing from this story that resonated with you. Just one. Is it planning your day tonight? Waking up 15 minutes earlier tomorrow? Reading one page of a book? Whatever it is, commit to that single tiny action. Start with just one habit today, and watch your destiny change, one small step at a time. Thank you for spending this time with me. Your journey is just beginning, and I believe in your power to create an extraordinary life.